Hello, everyone. We're back with Ken Dombrowski, Executive Life Coach and Master Hypnotist. And today we want to talk about strokes and, the after effects that people experience and how something like life coaching and, more importantly, hypnosis can help with those recoveries.
Stroke, of course, is a terribly devastating thing to happen, event that can happen to a person. And we might be familiar with how the aftermath of that, sadly, most people are just never the same or not even close. It is really takes your life in a completely different direction with massive amounts of physical limitations, cognitive limitations, and so forth. And of course, stroke victims tend to also be extremely emotional, very volatile emotionally. So what we have found, though, is with hypnosis is that hypnosis can help. I'm not going to say completely heal or cure or get rid of, but it can absolutely help kind of rebuild some neurons and pathways and things that I don't know what the hell they're called. I'm not a doctor.
Right.
But what I do know is that through a reconditioning in the mind, and I'll give you just a little sample. If you can imagine, this is just like be one tiny part of it, put you in a hypnosis and I have you light up your brain. Literally, in your imagination, see your brain, the actual brain itself in your head, become a beautiful, glowing, bright light. And then what's going to happen, and this has happened every time I've done this, that person is going to notice parts of that are going to be dim or even blacked out. And that's where we can see where the stroke did its damage. And they're just picturing this in their own imagination, their eyes closed in a hypnosis. So then what do? We focus on those dark areas, and it takes time. It takes repetition. We're talking session after session for, maybe once or twice a week for a year. But we do start to see, after just a few months, some progress in cognitive, abilities, some physical abilities. They just improve. And certainly, I want to make sure I'm clear on this. It doesn't make them go completely away. No. But how about much, much better, where you can manage and maneuver your life easier with less or even no help from other people? And interestingly enough, the person I learned this from, a gentleman who has been a hypnotist for by now at least 50 years, 55 years, he himself suffered a stroke about 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And everybody thought he was done. He was out of the game. He was never going to be the same again. And when you talk to him, you can tell this man has had a stroke in his life. The side of the face is a little bit off and the speech is a little off, and he has to walk with a cane. But he tells the story about how he had a stroke, and all he did was his own self-meditation, self-hypnosis, and he went from someone that was basically counted out as an invalid, just going to be bedridden the rest of his life, to where he's up and around and still, and now he's got to be about 75 years old by now, and he's still owning and operating his own company and still doing what he does.
Yeah, I think it should never be counted out what hypnosis can do in a medical situation, because something doesn't have to start medical and physical and then stay that way. No matter what happens to you medically, there's now an emotional aspect. Whether someone just walks up to you and stabs you, or you have a stroke that you don't see coming, or you fall on the playground and break your leg, there's an emotional aspect to that. Now there's fears and all of these different things tied to that incident, because specifically in stroke, quality of life goes down. You can't do the same things you used to do. Your outdoor activities are slowed. Sometimes you can't drive. You don't even sound the same. There's a lot of different factors that can cause you to lose the same quality of life that you were used to operating on. That's fully an emotional issue. So just because something starts medical doesn't mean it stays that way, and doesn't mean that you have to address it only medically. And I think that's the thing that needs to get opened up more, is that emotional is always involved, physical is always involved, mental is always involved. It's just a loop. You can't have one without the other two. And as long as we can have that understanding that we can look past just medication or physical therapy or traditional Western medicine, we have a better hope. It takes a team. It never just takes one thing. But if you've tried a bunch of stuff and it's not cutting it, it's because your emotional isn't being properly addressed. And that's what I spend a lot of time explaining to people, because they either see it, or maybe a doctor will be alternative enough to be like, maybe you should try hypnosis. But when they come to us with these problems, that's what I have to hammer home. Like, maybe this started physical or feels physical. It doesn't stop there. It never stops there. You can fix your problems through so many different avenues. And that's what needs to be made aware of, and what we're really trying to do here. And that's why we have free consults. We want people to come in and make sure this is the right kind of emotional help that they're seeking, that they need, that they resonate with, to make sure that we can make all the differences. We're not getting you to 100 every single time, especially depending on the issue. Like with stroke, I'm telling you, 60 to 80% is going to be what we're looking for a solid range. And time varies for everyone, but you're usually looking at a little bit of a commitment. It just depends on how much that quality of life matters to you.
And, that brings a very salient point, is that what most people are looking for is they're looking to their doctor, which of course, obviously you need to go with what your doctor says or is doing. But people then will rely on the drugs. They're relying on those drugs because it comes from a doctor, that comes from a pharmaceutical, and it's all, okay, this must be what I need. And we see people coming in, we've had stroke victims come in and we worked with, and gosh, there could be on 6, 8, 10 different drugs, that stuff that I've never heard of before. I have to look them up and find out what are these drugs about. And what ends up happening in most cases is someone decides or feels that they no longer need all of those drugs, most of them. They might start eliminating some that they don't feel that they need, and maybe keep one or two of them for whatever reason they feel necessary. So that's another part of the mental game we have to get over. You have a stroke, you're convinced that you're done for life. This is the rest of your life. So sadness, depression, anxieties, and fears, all kinds of stuff come and they inundate your mind, and now you just kind of surrender yourself to your doctor. And again, medically you need to, but as far as the follow-up, maybe not so much.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is people forget that they can look to more than one person. So many people call us and they're like, I tried traditional medicine. I tried getting a little bit alternative, but I need to go even more so than I'm looking. And that's the thing, is if you've not found anything that's worked for you yet, chances are by the time you get to us, it might be the thing that you're missing. Obviously, it needs to be paired with medication for a certain amount of time, or for certain individuals, or it needs to be paired with physical therapy or routine checkups with a normal MD. It's going to look different for everybody, but it's all trying to work towards the same goal. And we just know that takes more than just us sometimes, especially when it starts with a stroke, because that obviously needs to be taken care of in a hospital. But afterwards, I just can't stress how emotional it becomes of a situation. When you lose your quality of life, no matter how much or how little, you now need emotional help with that. Because some people that have strokes, they had relatively great lives. They weren't smokers. They didn't have childhood trauma. They've never been through anything that they consider truly traumatic. And the first time they experience it is when they stroke out in their 50s or 60s. There's a lot of emotional damage there. Guess what? You just experienced your emotional trauma. We need to address that. It goes so much further past phantom pains, loss of feeling, droopy face. There's a lot to reconcile underneath all that.
Definitely is. So all we can do is just start rebuilding the connections in the nervous system, and the how the brain is working, how the brain is functioning, by also at the same time filtering through and working through the emotional issues as you're describing. So it becomes part of a program. And one thing I really like, and we say this all the time, is that we're everyone's last stop. I just had a woman in the office just yesterday, been through all of it, so much psychological issues, decades of therapy, lots and lots of medical testings for her condition, and she's desperate because nothing is helping. So why not try this crazy shit called hypnosis? Let's give this a try. So we get this a lot. But here's the thing. The reason it's good that we're the last stop is because we need to satisfy medical. We need to know, is there if there's a specific medical, issue standing in the way, there's not much we can do, with hypnosis, because there's it's like, if you're bleeding to death, I can hypnotize you. It's not going to stop your bleeding.
Right.
Kind of, and that's a huge example. But this way also, the person knows what they've been through. They're learning how to deal with it physically and emotionally. And then they go to a psychotherapist and they're getting a little bit of mental help with it. Now it's time to come to us and kind of package the whole thing up.
Yeah, I think there's so much to be said about making sure that you take the proper steps before you get here. But there is a lot about being the last stop, and we have no problem being that last stop. But, just understand the role that you take personally and the role that we can then help you with. Everything's situational, and we want to help everyone we can, just get you in that right mindset, even if that is just understanding and acceptance of what you're now capable of. Obviously, we want to increase quality of life, but we also want you to understand that where you are now is also okay. It's okay to not be at the same quality of life again, as long as we're trying to improve it to the best that we possibly can.
Mm-hmm. So, to summarize it all up, we usually can get some great progress on stroke victims using hypnosis, but it takes a while. It takes quite a bit of treatment.
Yeah, we'll try our best. We can do what we can. Just give us the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you would like to set up a discovery call or just get more information, go look at our website today. Thank you so much. Bye now.
Thank you.